Mr. Yukon, how's it going? Make sure this is set to all messages. I'm sure it'll change it back to top messages, and that's always a pain, but all right. Well, get some people filtering in here. I'm going to get the forge lit and start heating that up for our project. And then I've got just a little bit to talk about. I've been cutting up billets for some other stuff, and out of the 1045 stock. And how's the audio? Can everybody hear me? Meal Power, how's it going? How are things up there in the frozen north? Alrighty, the audio is working. Hello from Georgia. So I've been cutting up stock for some other projects, and I had this bit of 1045 here. It's too short to get another piece out of it on the bandsaw because I can't clamp it. And so I said, we'll make a hammer out of this for somebody. So we're gonna make a hammer, and it'll be, if somebody doesn't dibs it on the live stream here, then it'll be up on the website. But we're going to make a blacksmith rounding hammer, not unlike the one we made several weeks ago. I've been using this. This one turned out 2 3/4 pounds, and I'm really enjoying it. So it's going to be of a similar style. That's what we're going to make tonight, and it'll be for somebody to forge stuff with. So that is tonight's project. See how everybody's doing here. Glue and scales and heat treat. Well, one of the traditions I kind of have for the end of the year, early each year, is to recap the year that just ended, and kind of to see what I accomplished. And so this is partly kind of for my own just kind of record keeping. And I've got some things that I'm going to share with you that I kind of learned over the last year as a bladesmith or knife maker that are relevant to you if you make knives, that kind of thing. But I always like to sit down and tally what I made, what I sold, that kind of thing. Basically the same thing throughout the year. And so we're a couple weeks into 2026, but we're going to do this for 2025. So I haven't had a chance to do this prior. So in 2025, I just sat down and tallied everything up. I sold 271 knives, 29 axes and or hatchets, mostly hatchets, and 1 hammer. And that was what I did last year. And That's about 100. I would say it's around 100. It's hard to believe, but I don't have my numbers for the last couple of years. They're in a video somewhere probably. But that's almost 100 more knives than previous years, the previous year and years prior to that. And I attribute that to several things. In this craft, I think it takes a long time. Well, it's taken me a long time, but I'm kind of special and I got a touch of the TISM or something. So it's taken me a long time to get to the point where you get like this high efficiency, and I'm still not there, but I'm getting closer to that. Higher efficiency, turning out the same quality of product. That's what years and hundreds of hours does for somebody in any field of work or any trade. And you might be able to make a really good product, let's say, relatively soon into the trade. But I think that's different than being able to make a really good product at a rate of time expenditure that makes it feasible to make a decent living. And that's anyway. So it's been a journey. It's been interesting and hard, but that's what am I trying to say? I always do these live streams at the end of the week where I'm kind of like spent, and I feel like I'm doing you guys a disservice a little bit, so sorry. 2-3 years ago, I don't think I could have been at that level of production. So it takes time to get to where you can turn out a high quality product in a timely fashion. But those two things, if you're going to try to make a living at anything, you have to be able to do that. Now, when you work for a company, a lot of that aspect is absorbed by just the collective, like the numbers of employees or the volume that a company's doing or machinery, right? But when it's just one guy doing stuff by hand, man, you have to figure out, and I'm still working on that, I'm still trying to figure it out, how to be efficient. And yeah, when when it's a hobby, you can take as much time as you want. You're just enjoying it, it doesn't matter. But that's not the situation I'm in. So anyway, that's what I did last year as far as numbers go. Now, been working on growing the business, of course, since I started. And my income numbers, which I won't share with you because that's personal, but those didn't change that drastically. And the reason for that is because over the last year and a half, my business model has shifted a little bit. And that's a good thing. But every time you shift things a little bit, it kind of takes time to build on that. Not that that's a bad thing, but over the last year and a half, I have started working. Well, I've been working. There's a better way to put it. I've been working with 2 different knife retailers or dealers now. And the first one, which a lot of you guys probably are aware of, is Ridge Runner Blades. Jason over there in North Carolina, really good guy, and that's been a huge blessing working with Jason at Ridge Runner Blades. And I've been able to sell a lot of knives. I got an alarm going off here. Hold on. This is I'm heat treating some knives at the same time here, so I gotta pull these out real fast, doing some normalizing. These are, I'll show you one here that's already been done. Let me know if the audio is okay still, guys, because it should be, because I should be going with the mic, running through the microphone, but I just want to make sure. So let me know if the audio is still good, I guess, if you wouldn't mind. Eric, how's it going? Long time no see, I think. Yeah, no, I'm just doing some of these, a nice deep or tall Nessmuk, just a really sweet little profile on that, I think. So I'm doing some of these along with a couple Kepharts, so just normalizing these at the moment. All right, thanks, Eric. I appreciate that. Audio's good still. All right, so the mic's working. Anyway, so that's what I had to pull out of the kiln. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, so it's been over a full year now. Can't believe it's already been that long. Been working with Ridge Runner blades for over a year, and it's been really good. And like I said, I've been able to sell Jason a lot of knives that he retails, right? Because that's his business, obviously. Well, one of his businesses, and so I'm selling them at a wholesale rate so that he can sell them and make a living too and whatever. But that's actually great because that helps both of us out. It's a blessing because then I don't have to post them to my website typically. I don't have to hold on to inventory and wait for it to sell. I don't have to ship it, each individual knife, So, he'll buy a knife, he'll buy a batch of knives or whatever, and then, I'm done with it and I can go on to making more knives. So it actually works out great. And then as far as just the advertising and marketing aspect of it, that is definitely worth something. And so, working with a dealer or a retailer has some distinct advantages, and if the goal is to sell more knives, then again it's hard for just one guy to really expand that effectively, and so that's been a huge blessing. And then a little more recently, this last year, I've been working with another retailer, Great Northern Knives up in Alaska. Jeff up there in Alaska is another really good guy, another brother in the Lord, and I'm looking forward to working with him a bunch more this year too. So, so we're working with two different retailers now, and I'm hoping to expand that with the right partnerships moving forward. We'll see what other things come available or what I can look into. But anyway, that's been a little bit of not a reset, but a little bit of an adjustment. So while the production numbers have gone way up, a lot of those have been wholesale sales. And so this year, my goal is like 500 items or 500 knives / hatchets or axes total. That's my goal this year, and I think we can. I think we could sell those, with the help of our retailers and stuff. I say we. It's literally just me. I do everything, so I don't know why I say we, but whatever. And then the channel here, and a lot of you guys on here have purchased knives and will purchase knives in the future. And that means a lot to me, and just the support that every individual person out there that's purchased a knife, and I've got people locally that purchase some knives. Everybody has helped support this, and I appreciate each and every person that has done that through knife sales and also the channel here too. So I feel really blessed, and to be able to do that, I'm working hard to try to keep growing the business for the good of everybody who needs a great, awesome handmade knife, and for the good of my family, support my family. So all that, obvious stuff. So we'll keep plugging away. that's kind of my business recap for 2025, and just sharing that a little bit here. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Bought an axe from me. Thanks, sir. So that's the recap. We're just, like I said, my goal is to expand that even more. And I mean, that's the direction you got to go. Like, if you're not growing, you're dying. So as a person, as a business, whatever. So anyway, there's that. A couple things that I have learned over the last year as a bladesmith or knife maker. Just very practical knife making type stuff here. One of the things I learned over the past year was handle material drives knife sales a lot more than I knew. And this is something I kind of figured out over a couple different instances, or a couple different blade shows, actually. I went to Blade Show West in 2024, which is in October, so end of 2024, and then I went to Blade Show Texas in March 2025. And granted, those were the first time I'd ever shown up to a show. However, they were not great for sales at all. It did not, I didn't even pay for the trip, kind of a thing. You write it off as an expense, you still have to pay for it, it's still time and effort. I've heard that you have to go to a show 2 or 3 times before people kind of know you're there. It's a different sector of the market than like people on YouTube here or whatever. Anyway, I was watching other people sell knives though, and granted their price point was a little bit different, but not drastically so. Some of them were pretty similar. In both instances, I was actually by the same guy at both shows. On the second show in Texas, there was one on either side of me, and both of those guys were selling knives. And I sold like literally one knife at Blade Show Texas. Well, what I noticed after spending time and money to go to these 2 different shows and not sell anything really, I noticed a pattern after 2 times that both these guys, or the one guy both times and then a third example, they had knives with some really eye-catching and just colorful, eye-catching, neat handle material. The knives themselves, especially in one of the cases, were not really that. I mean, they were. I'm not trying to knock other makers. I'm just saying they weren't spectacular or like super, incredible in any other specific way. But the difference that I noticed was the handle material. And so whether it was like, like the different kind of composite stuff, or like mammoth ivory, which can be expensive, or just neat handle material, usually colorful on some level, neat handle material. That's what I observed. That's what I saw, and I took note, because my knives, I am prone to sticking with what could be easily considered drab or mundane or simple handle material, specifically the colors. Like I like natural woods and stuff, and some of those have some really nice figurine and grain pattern to it. But then, like, I've used a fair amount of like black and natural canvas micarta, which, let's face it, is not very pretty to look at. The first thing that comes to my mind is I can't hear you, sorry. What's that?
Can I use your phone?
No, I'm doing it live right
Can
now.
you come in?
I'm doing it live right now, sorry. Sorry, the first thing that comes to my mind with a knife design and how to build it is functionality. And so the way it feels in the hand, the way it actually cuts and functions, all of those things are like what's important, the steel, the heat treat, etc. And so the appearance of the hand, like the color of the handle material is pretty far down on the list for me when I'm thinking about making a knife typically. Well, that's all well and good, but if you need to sell a knife, which I do, and a lot of people want to sell a knife, you got to think about what the customer might, what might appeal to the customer. And so that's what I noticed. And so since then, I have tried to incorporate some more interesting or appealing aspects to the handle material in the knives that I make. And I haven't done away with natural woods or anything like that, but one thing, for example, I'm gonna be doing some here soon. I'll be putting liners like some red G10 and green, whatever, different colors, like different stuff like that. And I have worked on getting, some other handle materials that are more interesting. Like I just put, some cool stabilized dyed and stabilized burls, some different composite micarta, different things like that. There's all kinds of different options you can go out there and get cool, colorful, interesting, or eye-catching handle material. And so, coming up, Blade Show Texas this year. I can't remember my table number, but I'll be there. I'll announce it when we get closer. It's the end of March. I'm already thinking about, okay, what do I want to bring? And most of what I'm going to bring is not even made yet. So I've got handle materials selected. I want to bring a nice variety. I want to bring stuff that's going to be eye-catching, that's going to pop, so to speak, that people are going to want to look at closer. But I think that applies in any type of venue that you're selling knives, whether it's at a show or maybe online or anything. So I've tried to grow in that area. So that's one big thing. Excuse me, I learned over the last year or so, and maybe that'll help you. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that. John says, have you ever used dinosaur bone agate? I've always wanted to try it. I have not. I'm getting ready to make some Damascus stuff with mammoth molar for the first time, and that's expensive stuff. Wheel power, yeah. I mean, your knives. Every time I see your knives, pretty much, I like the look, the design. I'm sure they probably function really well. The design look like they function really well, and it's harder to sell a knife. I guess here's the thing. There's the number of people that are completely focused on how the knife functions. Those people are fewer in numbers. If those are the people that if those are the only people you're trying to sell a knife to, everybody wants a knife to work on some level, but that's just not enough. Like they need to. I'm finding they need to have some additional appeal, and part of that is because there's so many knives out there. There's so many people making handmade knives. So BF6554, how's the knife making business in this economy? It's doing all right. The other thing I was going to say is that I did not go to Blade Show West 2025 in part because of how poorly I did in 2024. I kind of regret that because I saw an article in Blade Magazine where they talked about, they kind of recapped the Blade shows, and apparently Blade Show West 2025 was way better for everybody than 2024. Because 2024, I guess a lot of people didn't sell stuff. And I talked to people there a little bit, and that's kind of what I heard, but then that was confirmed in this article. And I guess this last year, 2025, was way better. And in 2024, what was going on? Well, that was right before the election, right? And so I think that had a lot to do with it. And so, yeah, the economy and election cycles from year to year or every 2 to 4 years or whatever, that can definitely affect how people want to spend their money or if they want to spend it. And so, you know, there was a lot of people there in 2024, but not a lot of sales. And I guess that was different this last year. So, oh well. So anyway, so I'm hoping that Blade Show Texas 2026 is a lot better than the last year too. We'll see. I can't remember. Maybe I can think of the second thing. I do remember the second thing. Okay, we got to forge this billet down, guys. It is hot. It is ready to roll. In fact, I need to turn that forge down a little bit. It is heated up. We are good to go. We don't need no more heat on that. Nice thing about working the billet hot like this, though, is you can get most of your dimensional forging done in one heat. So we got to forge this down to pretty much a square. Keep working it side to side here. Yeah, these big chunks of steel, they hold the heat for a nice long time. And even though the press is really bad about sucking the heat out, you know, there's just so much mass there. It's still pretty lengthy forging time. So I want to forge it down a little more, just a little bit more. I think this is really close, actually. This is going to be fairly similar in size, I think, to this hammer, which is a good size. I like it. It could be a little heavier, but it's something you can swing for a long time. And now that I don't forge all my blades by hand, which is a tough way to do it, let me tell you. You're not swinging a hammer all day, every day. You don't kind of your arm doesn't stay in shape as much, but it also kind of, it puts a little wear and tear on your elbow and shoulder. Now that I'm over 40, I have to, you know, remember that I'm getting old. And so now when I do push-ups, my shoulder makes a noise and stuff. BF, well, I work, it took me a long time to get to where I could use like a 5-pound hammer, which I use that for driving tooling and stuff more now. I have to, like I said, I gotta realize that I'm getting old now. Ransom, how's it going? Yeah, so anyways. So yeah, that was the first thing that I learned. Handle material helps drive sales on knives, at least in this little slice of the knife market that I'm in. The second thing that I learned, and you know, if this has any application to people, I don't know, but the second thing that I learned in my particular business and so forth is it's helpful to be able to be flexible, or another way to say this, it's helpful to be able to pivot. In your business, and this is probably true for any business really, how you apply that, I guess, is going to differ. But the way I have applied it, and the way that it applies to what I'm doing specifically, or somebody like me perhaps in a small, handmade type business, is being able to put out smaller, a wide variety of smaller batches of stuff. So earlier in the year, I got to where I was feeling like, okay, you know, we got to get into the production mode kind of a thing. I got to be able to get really efficient, you know, because I got to make more stuff, which I do, you know, I did. And so there was multiple times that I would run like batches of 20 on one model, one knife, or batches of 12 or 10 on the same thing or something very similar. And it's true, I think, obviously, that your efficiency goes up when you're able to do that, because you can do the same process on everything more or less and then move to the next station, and that leads to higher efficiency if it's done properly. Obviously, that's not hard to understand. But what I kind of found out or realized that at least at this stage of my business, I'm not to the point where I can make 20 of anything and sell it out in a short amount of time. And so, you know, some portion of that is going to sit around. It's going to sell eventually, but some portion of that's going to sit there. And in the meantime, while I've been finishing this big batch, because, you know, that takes probably a week and a half. I don't know. It depends on what it is. You know, it takes some time. While I have been finishing this big batch that isn't going to sell out completely when I finish it, people are wanting, like, you know, one of this other knife or two of these other things, right? And so that could potentially be the cost of, you know, lost opportunity or whatever they call that. And so what I kind of realized was, at least at this stage of my business, I need to be able to be a little more flexible and pivot quicker. And so instead of locking myself into a batch of 20, it doesn't take, you know, months or weeks even. That could take a couple weeks, whatever. You're always doing some other stuff on the side. But for the main thing you're working on, instead of locking myself into a batch of 20 of something, I want to be able to do a batch of, you know, I don't know, 3 to 5 of this model, and then finish that up pretty quickly and sell most of those, and then do a batch, you know, 2 to 3 or 4 of this thing, finish that up really quickly, sell most, like, so that way you're not sitting on a bunch of inventory at some point and having people wait for something else. And so, you know, the nature of what we're doing as a small maker, custom type stuff or just handmade stuff, you know, that I found that to be pretty relevant. So that's another adjustment to the business model that I've made. Because at first I thought I was gonna this was the way, like big batches, high efficiency, and then I had some stuff just sitting around like, okay, well that's not helping anybody, it's not helping me, it's not helping the guy that wants that other model of whatever that I can't get to for 2 or 3, 4 weeks or whatever, because I'm doing these big batches of other stuff that I've kind of committed to. So that made sense to me, and I've kind of decided to be a little more flexible and just realize that you can't just kind of turn into this production mode animal and a robot and stay in there, So it's not bad though, because it kind of helps keep things interesting when you're working on a slightly different thing from week to week. So it's really not a bad thing. Sometimes I think I need to get a bigger press. Maybe a bigger hammer. But I need a place to put it. I'm still kind of working on that. Okay. I think our billet looks pretty nice. It's nicely squared up. If you can buy square stock in medium carbon steel, that would save that whole step. I can't where I'm at, so you got to do that. Anyway, there we go. It's about 4 inches long, 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches ish. That'll make a nice hammer. So let's get this heated back up nice and hot, and we shall punch the eye. So those are the two of the big things that I learned over the last year as a bladesmith, knife maker, blacksmith, whatever, small business person, and it's going to inform my strategy into this new year and possibly far beyond. I don't know. I'm sure something will change during 2026 that I'll learn about. And of course, as businesses grow, the way you have to do things is constantly changing. It's entrepreneurship, it is not for the faint of heart. It's Friday, so Ransom's doing good. Good deal. If I understand the gist of the comments, Yield Power and BF, I have found, this is something I'll say. People are going to see a knife of yours, and they're going to like that knife. They're going to want that knife. It happens all the time. And if you don't have that knife available, you very well may lose a knife sale. And so I have found that it's beneficial to have a range of models, of recurring models, that I will kind of rotate around. I don't have all of I never have all of them, never have more than one or two of them sort of in stock at a time, just because of what we just talked about. So I'll kind of rotate around and have, build a batch of this, build a batch of that. And of course I'll do a lot of one-off stuff too. Or stuff that's not really a model, but it's of a particular style, but it's more or less one-off. But yeah, having a range of models that people recognize, and if somebody sees somebody else has one of your knives, they really like that knife. Hey, I want to get one of these for my brother or my dad or my grandpa or my uncle or whatever. You need to have that knife available. And what I've done is I've noticed the ones that people continue to want, and I've come up with models that I thought were great at the time, and they didn't do so great, so they're not models anymore. I haven't made any, I don't make them, But the ones that people like, I've made hundreds of just the same knife over the years, because it's a popular model. So that's definitely something to think about. So there you go. And it's all about kind of, I guess, picking your specific business model. If you're doing like higher end stuff, the H1 is its own art piece basically, then that probably doesn't apply. But if you're like me or Mule Power, making working knives, high-end working knives, they're made to be used, they work well, then you're probably going to want to have some models so people can get the same knife that they like or saw that somebody else had that they liked. But what do I know? Mule Power, do you sell to the U.S. or just in Canada? Also, I don't know if Instagram's a good place to sell knives. I think everybody on Instagram is a knife maker. I don't know though. I just got on Instagram pretty recently, so I don't know. I guess I have sold at least one knife off of there, but that's just been my experience. Thanks, Ransom. Honestly, it takes time to get your name out there and build stuff up. It's not easy, to be honest. All right, it can be done though. I think we're ready to punch this hammer. Can you guys see? Maybe bring it a little closer here. A little bit there, a little bit here. Here we go. All right. This is gonna be awesome. Got to make sure this is lined up. I do not have any mark or measurement to go by, so I'm being very careful to make sure that I have it centered front to back and side to side, because this is the most important step right here. If I mess this up, it's a pain in the neck to fix going forward. So up on this side, if I'm not centered up on this side, I'm not going to have a good slug, and that's going to be a problem. But we do, thankfully. There's our slug. That means we got it lined up. We got it lined up on both sides. If you're off center from the opposite side, it's not going to punch that slug out like that, nice and clean. So everything after this should be easy. You get this part done properly and lined up correctly, everything else should be easy, relatively speaking. I'm going to cool this off in the water here. Okay, well now we got to switch over to some flat dies here. That's a little hot. Where's my bolster? Here we go. Bolster for drifting stuff on the press. Got a flat side. Got a side for the lugs. Use a flat side right now. Yeah. This punch is H13 steel. It's not actually lined up square, so I can't actually hold the billet square to the tooling. That's kind of important to remember when you're punching stuff. If you just line it up with the tooling, it's going to be crooked. That's not ideal, but whatever. Yep, any business. I think I did a video about this. The thing I get tired of in this particular business is you're basically always having to promote your product. And if you don't, then you're not going to sell it. It's called sales. I'm not a salesman. I mean, I am, but I'm not. I have to be. But I would never, unless it was something I really believed in myself. I don't know what kind of product that would be, but I wouldn't go be a salesman for another company or something like that. That's not who I am. You know, so that's kind of hard. But you have to do that if you want to have a business. I don't know, there's some products that sell themselves, right? I don't know. What are those? Some products, I think, you have to just be there and not suck as a business and not have a product that sucks. And, you know, you're there and whatever. I don't know, what would that be? Like groceries, maybe? Food? I don't know, but when it comes to a lot of stuff that's not a necessity for people to live, there's a little more, you have to find your clients, you have to find your customers. Because they're out there, but they're not necessarily going to come find you because it's not something that they have to live. So that makes it a little more difficult. I think this is going to be like a 3-pound hammer. Maybe more, 3 1/4, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I did not weigh this billet before I started, which I was gonna, and then I forgot. I'm gonna drift the other side real quick here. See what I mean about the heat, holding the heat a long time? That is a nice thing about working a big chunk of steel. Okay. There we go. We've got the first stage drift done. Next thing we're going to do is heat it back up nicely and put the second drift in, and we're going to forge out the cheeks. Put some nice lugs on it. I don't know, I may be tempted to keep this hammer. Be a nice, I think it might be a nice in between a nice graduation from the 2 3/4 to the 4 or 5. I don't know. But no, I gotta sell it because I said I would, so. Somebody might be sad. I think it's going to be a nice hammer, though. Very nice for forging stuff. I am curious to see how heavy it's going to be. I'm going to guess 3 1/4 pounds. That's going to be my prediction on this. I'm going to guess it's going to be 3 1/4 pounds finished weight. See how far off I am. Jesus Christ, how's it going? So, just ready for Jesus to come back. You know, some days. Alright, I gotta let that heat up some more. That is not ready to do anything with. Plug my phone in here. Alright guys, any questions? While we wait for this billet to heat up. I'm actually gonna move the camera back over here because I'm gonna drive that drift in right there, and then I'm gonna move and you guys won't be able to see anything. So yeah, that ain't gonna work. We're forging a blacksmithing rounding hammer for sale. It's gonna be for sale. So if anybody needs a hand forged super duper forging hammer, let me know. Oh, what camera? I'm just using my phone. This is a different phone so I can see the chat, but I'm just using my phone. How is it working? I feel like it has decent video actually, but getting there. Yeah, so anybody on here gonna go to Blade Show Texas? Anybody watching gonna go to Blade Show Texas? Thanks, Reason. want this billet. Blade Show Texas is March 20th and 21st in Fort Worth. It's in the Fort Worth Convention Center. All right, got to pull this out, drive this. You know, I was thinking too, I don't know if I should make a couple hammers to bring to the show. I don't know if anybody would want some of that, but thought about that too. I didn't have my tongs ready. That wasn't smart. All right. Put that in the quench tank. That's looking pretty good. I gotta change my dies, so I can't do that on this heat, but I gotta squish down the faces a little bit. They got a little rectangular, you know, forging the lugs, and that's done. See, that's why you want it. Well, I don't know. I could probably do a little bit more, flip it around, maybe just a touch more, but it's pretty much done. And that's why you want to get it up to a good forging heat so you can get the work done. So much easier, and it's a lot faster instead of trying to forge stuff at too low of a heat. Yeah. Blade Show Texas, March 21st. So that's a Saturday and Sunday, I believe. Or is that a Friday, Saturday? It might be a Friday, Saturday. I don't know. It's 21st. It's at the Fort Worth Convention Center. And I'm on an end table. I think it's 7V, but I can't remember. Anyway, I'm on the vendor list. So yeah, should be a good time. Hoping to sell some stuff this year. Big aspirations, you know, sell some stuff. Okay. If I had a bigger power hammer, a lot of this could be done on that, and that would be fun, but I don't, so I'm not. Okay, so I actually just forgot that I was going to do a tad bit more with the drifting, or with the forging the cheeks out. That's okay. What I want to do is I just want to make the thicknesses a little closer to similar from top to bottom. They're very close, but I can make them a little bit closer. Come on. Gotta get that all the way in there. So we're just gonna use the flat dies to kind of do that a little bit. It'll be okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Our billet was not perfectly square, so I I mean, like it was a little bit tetragonal or whatever, cross-section wise. It's not really going to affect anything, but the lugs are slightly off on height. It's not a big deal, just adds character. All right, where's those other tongs at? Do not know. There they are. Okay, I'm going to address the faces a little bit and make them more square because they're not very square. So we don't want a rectangular hammer. I mean, it would work, I guess, but we need them a little more square. So got that. Where's my hammer drift at? Let's see here. Get my final hammer drift ready to go. Okay, I think I brought it over here. Yes, I did. Thanks, BF. I appreciate that. I hope I sell some stuff too. But I mean, if I went for 5 years in a row and never sold anything, then something would be wrong, I think. But if that happened, I'd probably quit going. I've only been to Blade Show Texas one time, and it is disappointing to not sell anything or sell one knife. It is disappointing. And it's hard not to be disappointed in the moment, but even going into it knowing like, okay, I might not sell anything or might sell much, but this is like you got to go for a few years, you know. So you tell yourself that, and that's true and everything. It's still disappointing when you don't sell stuff. So hopefully this year's better than last year. Okay. Some crud on there. Don't want that on there. We'll forge that into the hammer. Okay. Square up these. Square. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So next we're going to start drifting the final hammer eye, the final drift size, and we'll do some more work to the faces here. Well, I got to put these knives in for some spherodizing. Okay, I'm gonna bring you guys over here because we're gonna do some drifting. You know, I should probably put a glove on here. Probably a smart idea. I'm going to try to hold that drift over the top of that. That will burn you. So, just okay. I'm gonna forge on the yeah, that made the drift fall out. I did forget to hit the corners like I was gonna. But I guess I can do that by hand. A little bit. Or just hit it with this. A little bit. Okay, that's not hot enough to do much. Gotta heat that back up. So what I need to do is, all right, I gotta figure out what I need to do next. What I need to do next is cool this drift off. Get this drift out of here. This back. Okay, I need to flip this over, heat it back up, and I got to stamp the logo. And then press the sides a little bit, address the corners on the hammer faces or whatever, and then that's kind of it. Like, I can't keep forging it and just messing with it. So round off the faces a little bit. Hey Ransom, thanks. What you have for dinner? I didn't get an invite. What's up with that? No dinner invite? Come on now. I don't know what I'm gonna have for dinner. Oh. Okay. Yep, gotta drift that other side. I'm gonna drift that, clean up the flats a little bit, then stamp it so that I'm not messing up the, the one thing. Better stop messing with it before I ruin it. I think that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna drift it a little more, stamp it. I think we'll be all right. Pork chops. Sounds good. Almost anything sounds good about now, however. Lowry's, can't go wrong with Lowry's, you know. Pretty good for all kinds of stuff, including mashed potatoes. That's how we typically make mashed potatoes. Although we actually ran out of Lowry's and I've had to make do with salt and pepper and paprika and I guess garlic powder. Not quite the same. Okay, I don't need this to be super hot to stamp. This 1045 steel, compared to most of the steels I work with, you know, 1045 is pretty. It's fun because it's not a super stiff steel to forge. Okay. That is looking pretty slick, if I do say so myself. Not this one didn't turn out perfectly square. Neither of them did. This one's a little more square. Don't do that. But pretty nice overall, actually. So I think I'm gonna press that down just a little bit. Because the one side with the stamp is a little more dished and I want it to be even. So now that's even. I like that. What do you think? Looking pretty sweet, I think. Okay. Pull the drift out, cool it off. We're gonna drift it a little more. We're pretty close though. Do I need to make any adjustments on the eye? I don't think so. Maybe right here, just a tad. All right, we're gonna heat this back up. Yeah, this is going to be really close to. I'm gonna amend my guess. I'm gonna redo my guess. I'm gonna say 3 pounds. I think this hammer is gonna turn out real close to 3 pounds, which is a great. If you've been forging a little while, it's a great size. It's not like a big old 4 or 5 pound. I mean, 4 is not massive, but it's bigger. And then the 5 pounds are pretty big. It's a nice in-between size. 3 pounds would be. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're gonna finish drifting it now. We're gonna drift it up to the final eye dimension, and then the hammer will be complete, except for heat treating. And well, we'll go ahead and quench it here too. I can throw it in the kiln to temper it after we're done here. So I've actually got a different batch of knives in there that are just finishing up the temper, so I guess I got 13 minutes on them. Anyway. We'll see, but we're really close to that anyway. All right. So I'm using, I don't know if you guys can see. Can you see? Barely. Okay. I'm using this, it's called a bolster, and using it so that the lugs don't get crushed. We're just going to drift this up. Finished dimensions, and I put an oversized eye on my hammers, and that of course is for durability. Slight adjustment on that one. This one needs a slight adjustment as well. Bring that eye back over, just straighten that out just a tad. That is just a tiny bit wonky. I don't like that. I think it's more of an issue with getting the drift in there to kind of move it over the right spots. Okay. Yeah, see the flux that's in my forge is starting to is melting now, and it's kind of sticking in there. see if I can adjust that slightly here. The eye is a little off. Oh yeah, right back in, that's good, okay. All right, we're gonna drift it from this side now, again. Should be really close. How long does that propane last? Well, it really depends on how much forging you're doing, but that should last. I mean, that with what I typically do, if I'm not doing a big batch of like axes or something, or Damascus billets, that'll last a month, easy. It just really depends. And then also too, if you have it filled up in the summer, they don't last as long as when they're in the winter, because the propane is, especially around here, the temperature difference is so much. If you get it filled up when it's like 100 degrees outside, the propane guy explained this to me the other day, you're actually getting a lot of vapor as opposed to actually liquid petroleum gas. And so, you know, you can fill it up, get the same pressure, whatever that is, you know, it's got a set pressure on it, and it's not actually going to have as much fuel in there during the summer as it does in the winter. So that affects how long it lasts too. So, 'cause I noticed one that I had filled up when it was warm, and I noticed it noticeably didn't last as long as it normally should have. Okay, that is going just spectacular. All right, I check everything's lined up. Knock that out. We're gonna drift it one more time from the other side, and that'll be it, man. That'll be the final drift. And then we can harden it, temper it. Good to go. Yes, sir. I'm really liking how this has turned out, I have to say. I'm pretty happy with this new style of hammer. Yeah, here in Texas, the temperature change, like it cooled down and warmed back up and cooled down and warmed back up since December, and now it's fixing to cool down again a lot. You guys probably are up north, probably already got that, and we're supposed to get cold temps tomorrow evening or something. I kind of wish it would just stay one way or the other. Like I'm not complaining, you know, about it being warmer right now, but when it keeps changing, that's what's hard. Okay, that looks pretty slick. We'll just hit it from this side again real fast. Make sure it's clean. All right. Yeah, we got some grinding to do, of course, on the faces, but double check how it lines up. Make sure it's square. Yep, it's good. Check it from the both sides. Lined up. Awesome. I think we have a winner. And depending on how you look at it, like this side, it's like, oh wait, that doesn't look quite right. It's just the different facets on the hammer are a little bit different on the different sides, and they look slightly different. But I also need to, and there's also a top and a bottom to this too. So yeah. That'll be good. Yeah, and rounding the faces of it helps minimize the amount of grinding you have to do, because hammers do not have a flat face. At least forging hammers don't. And especially on one side, because this is a rounding hammer. So, but in any event, the hammer's got a slight convex to the face, and that's necessary. And then on this side, it's heavily rounded for the rounding side of the hammer. So forging that in slightly helps a lot. Would not want to grind that in all completely, grind it in. All right, well, this last heat we'll consider a normalizing cycle, and we'll let this cool down a little more, and then we can harden it, and then I'll stick it in the kiln to temper, and then I can clean it up, grind the faces, put it on a handle, and it'll be ready to sell. Ready for somebody to take home to their shop and make cool stuff. Yeah, 62 degrees up there in Montana. That's not normal this time of year. That's it's kind of the opposite of normal. This is still glowing. It's not completely cooled off, which makes sense because it's a big chunk of steel compared to. like when it comes to wearing gloves, if you start working with large billets of steel, just holding it like this close when it's at full heat and you don't have a glove on, the radiating heat will burn you. And so it's a whole different, you know, whether you're doing Damascus billets or if you're forging hammers or axes or something, it's a whole different ball game than forging blades. Like, I don't ever wear gloves forging, just forging knives, hardly ever. But on something like this, if you're holding a drift, a punch over the top or a drift, or if you're very close at all while you're holding it under the press or something, it'll get hot really fast. All right, this is cooled off to a black heat, I believe. Let me check it again. It's actually still, come out here in the dark, it's still actually got a very, very low red heat to it, so it's not quite cooled off to a black heat. Not quite. I want that, I'll just let it cool down all the way to a black heat, and then we'll heat it back up and quench it. Yeah, I take it out in the dark and it's still got a very faint red glow to it, which is it looks completely black right now in the light, which is a great example of how different colors look when it comes to the heat that's in the steel. The colors are very different depending on ambient light. So that's always something to be aware of. Yeah, speaking of Ridge Runner blades, these knives I'm making for Ridge Runner, they are a Wharncliffe version of the Buckthorn. Those are still hot. And they're going to Ridge Runner, but they're a neat little EDC knife. Wharncliffe blade on them. All right, where's my tongs? What am I doing with my tongs? Nope, here they are. All right, let's pop this back in the forge. We will quench it. Brendan, this is 1045 carbon steel. So a medium carbon steel, perfect for this kind of thing. It's tough, and that's what we need. Impact, ability to take an impact. It's got to be tough. So obviously it works great for making hammers. That works good for axes and stuff too. You know, if you heat treat it properly. I use the 1060 for the axes, but yeah, I don't know how to spell Wharncliffe half the time either. I think it's WHAR, and then I think it has an E on the end, but who cares? People always call it a Warney anyway, from what I've seen. Infrared, yeah, like ransom right there, see? That's how you spell it, I guess. Infrared thermometer, you know, I haven't used one of those. I think they could be handy. I think there's something to be said for, you know, honing one skill to where you have the eye for what it is you're doing, without relying on a thermometer. But maybe that could be how you hone that skill too. So I've thought about getting one, just to see what temperatures are. If I have a pretty good idea, but you can even like learn what the correct temperature is by eye for something, and not necessarily know exactly what the actual temperature is. And that could be an application for the infrared thermometer. Try and see if I can kind of heat up the faces without heating up the eye as much. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but I'm going to try it here. There may be too much heat coming out to really be able to control that at all. So on this 1045, you have to get a significantly higher austenitizing temperature on it than like your blade steel, because it doesn't have a lot of carbon in it, and so metallurgically speaking, you have to get that carbon spread around more because there's less to grow around. That's a simplistic way to put it, but that's basically what's going on. Whereas when you have a high carbon steel, there's no lack of carbon, and you're not trying to like get it to fully integrate evenly and as much as possible. You don't have to try that hard on that in that aspect. Well, I don't think that's working that good. I'm just gonna put this in the forge, heat it up, quench it like normal. Oh, were you talking about an infrared thermometer for cooking pork chops? I thought you were asking me that. That's funny. Okay. Plenty hot. But it has to be plenty hot, or it won't harden. So I'll quench the whole thing, harden the whole thing, I should say, and then I'll temper the entire hammer, and then I can come back and I can temper out the cheeks some more so they're a little softer. The other way would be to just heat up the faces, but I do find that having a fully hardened and tempered hammer provides better, it works better. It's got better energy to it because there's no give in it. And all the hammers I've made have been fully heat treated, and I've never had a problem with them. I've always made them a really chunky style, so the cheeks are very, very thick. And so there's no weak spot there really. These ones, the cheeks are a little thinner compared to what I've made in the past. They're still very hefty. And like this one right here, these ones are even thinner actually. There's still so much material there. This is a fully heat treated hammer, and I just like the way they work better. So I don't know, I might leave this one, but never had a problem with them. They've always worked really well. So I don't know, you leave all that material on there, spread it up, and it's just, all that material's still there. It's just kind of flattened out more. So anyway, there's our hammer. There's the hammer, guys. Bring it over here in the light. It is hardened. It's been forged. It's hardened. It's ready to temper and then clean it up, clean all the scale off, grind the faces, polish those up a bit, and then put a nice hickory handle on it. So there you have it. So let's get this thing in the kiln. We'll temper this for a couple hours, and it'll be ready. Might get a handle put on it tomorrow. Probably won't take too long. And yeah, I think it turned out really well. I think it's going to be a great little hammer for somebody in their shop. So looking forward to getting it finished and up on the website. Oh, you did mean for forging. Okay, I wasn't wrong. All right. Sorry, I was confused. Yeah, surface temps on meat. Well, I thought, being up there in Montana, you had some kind of trick or something, like you're advanced in the art of, I don't know. Brendan, have you ever worked on stainless steel? Was thinking about getting some run. It depends on what you mean by, if you're talking about blade steel, stainless blade steel, or what? As far as stainless blade steel, I've used a few different ones. I've used AEBL, I've used S35VN, and then more recently I've done a few knives in MagnaCut. And that, there's different methods, different ways you got to heat treat those as opposed to the carbon steels. You got to have the ability to do at the least a sub-zero quench, which is like negative 100 degrees, and that is a dry ice slurry. And then some really, you got to have a cryo, which is negative 300 degrees, and we're talking liquid nitrogen and stuff. I haven't done that before. I've only worked with the steels that you can do a sub-zero quench on. And that's necessary because the high alloy content of the high chromium content really slows down the ability of the carbon and other elements in the steel to move around. And so to get it to fully convert to martensite, you've got to drop that temperature to significantly lower than your typical carbon steel. But I have worked with a little bit. And then what Ransom's talking about is stainless clad Sanmai with a high carbon steel edge, and I really enjoy some of that stuff. And that's, you know, the actual edge is not stainless steel, so that's a little bit different. But anyway. Yeah. Yeah, Brendan, you can, to get the best performance out of a stainless steel, because you do have to have that low temp quench. There are, like I said, there's a couple that you can do the Sub-Zero, and that is specifically AEBL, and then the S35VN also works fine with the Sub-Zero quench, and that's because of the components of the steel, the makeup of the steel. But most stainless steels, you're going to have that Sub-Zero, that cryogenic stuff. Good deal, Ransom. Glad you like that knife. Yeah, I've over the last month, a couple of weeks, I've forged out probably like 10 or 15 stainless clad Sanmai, so I'm got those in the works. I'm going to be doing a bunch more, by the way. Just since we brought it up, but anywho, well, I appreciate you guys coming along, and hope you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for hanging out while we forge this hammer. Looking forward to getting that finished and put up on the website for somebody to take to their shop. See, we got 22 people in the chat. That's awesome. Anybody have any questions or comments, anything like that while we're still on here real fast? And throw them up there while we got people in the chat. I'm gonna go shut the main door here. If you got any final questions or anything like that, throw them up there in the chat. We're going to be getting this hammer finished up probably tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow. Get that up on the website, and somebody can take it home and forge with it. So that'll be cool. And then, like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to Blade Show Texas, I'll be there. I'll be letting people know as we get closer to, but just starting to kind of put that out there on the channel here so people know about it. That is March 20th and 21st at the Fort Worth Convention Center. So throw that out there one more time. Glad you enjoyed it, Ransom. What wood? Hickory. That's what I use almost exclusively for all my tool handles, hickory. So, need a stake turner. Well, maybe that needs to be the next live stream. Let's tentatively plan on that being the next live stream. Stake turner. I've made a few of those. It's been a while, but we can make that the next live stream. Let's do that. And if you want that one, or even if you don't, we'll make one, and hopefully next Friday if nothing comes up. Put it on your calendar. All right, guys. Appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for hanging out there, and hope you all have a good weekend. And we'll see you on the next video.